A wealthy man offered me $1 million to be his lover. I hesitated and was about to agree. Suddenly, the man sitting in the corner flipped the table. I just realized that he was Harry, the boyfriend I dumped in college. I was so ashamed and wanted to run away. But he grabbed my arm, his eyes red, and said, "Want money, huh? I'll give you 3 million, and you're mine." Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. The surrounding voices jeered. The sun must be rising from the west, even Harry's being so vulgar. She's the top girl here, really beautiful. I heard she never goes out with anyone, only drinks with them. Last time, John offered her 100,000 for a month, and she refused. John's just stingy. He sees Judy is pretty and looks down on her working here, offering 100,000 to insult her. John spends more than that taking starlets out. Can she compare? But since Harry has spoken, I'll let him have her. When he's tired of her, I'll take my turn, haha. I stood there, clutching my clothes, my ears filled with their filthy words, feeling as humiliated as possible. But Harry wouldn't let go of me. Can you let go of me? My voice wasn't loud, but they all heard it. Oh, such a big appetite. Not satisfied with 3 million. Harry, forget it. I'll find you someone cleaner in the entertainment circle. This one's just pretending. The words got nastier, and I broke free from Harry's grip and ran out. Laughter erupted behind me. I didn't expect to run into Harry again. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken Linda's shift tonight. After escaping the private room, I ran into the manager. Seeing me in such a hurry, she stopped me and asked, "What's wrong, Judy? Another difficult customer?" "No, I'm just feeling unwell." "Sorry, manager, I'd like to take a leave." "Leave? Judy, how could you?" "Mr. Harry, why are you out here? It's our fault for not taking good care of you, really sorry." "I'll get someone else right away." "No need, I'm looking for her." "Judy." I froze, wanting to move, but it felt like my feet were nailed to the floor. The manager saw this and quickly said, "Oh, it's like this, no problem at all. She's new here, hasn't seen much of the world. I'll persuade her." She pulled me aside and whispered, "Judy, Mr. Harry rarely visits. Don't be so shy. Many girls here would kill for a chance to drink with him, and he picked you. Be sensible. Think about your debt." "I understand." The manager patted my shoulder and smiled at the person behind me. "Mr. Harry, she's new. If there's anything unsatisfactory, let me know, I'll make sure to train her properly." "That's enough." The manager quickly left. The hallway was empty except for the two of us. I took a deep breath and turned to Harry. "I agree to your proposal. But I have conditions." He stared at me, his eyes unreadable. "Say it." "I'll stay with you for a maximum of 3 months. He laughed and then said, 3 months for 3 million? Do you think money is that easy to earn? I bit my lip, holding back my bitterness. Then, Mr. Harry, you set the time. I'll decide when I'm tired of you. Harry had already inherited his family's business and had become the most famous young talent in the city. The manager didn't dare to offend him, afraid that with just a flick of his finger, Harry could cause big trouble for our club. That night, I got into Harry's Maybach. He drove me to a 5-star hotel. As soon as we entered, he pinned me against the door and kissed me furiously. It was like he was venting his anger, not giving me any chance to catch my breath. I felt a bit dizzy and tried to push him away, but he was like a wall, impossible to budge. In desperation, I bit his tongue hard, and when my mouth filled with the taste of blood, he finally let go. Harry wiped the blood off his lips with his finger and smiled. "What's this? You want to back out again?" Then he walked into the room, put his coat on the back of a chair, loosened his tie, and sat on the edge of the bed, looking at me. "Still playing that game? Agreeing and then backing out? Judy, you think it's fun to make a fool of me? Ha, I must be quite the joke." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my flesh. The pain helped me calm down. I could show my embarrassment in front of anyone, but not in front of Harry. It had always been this way. I put on a professional smile and walked towards him, undressing as I went. Mr. Harry, I was young and naive before, with a bit of misplaced pride. You're a big shot, it's been so long, you wouldn't hold a grudge against me, right? His face grew darker and darker. My vest was just pulled up to my stomach when he grabbed my hand. Judy, if you don't want to, why force yourself? He threw a bank card at me, got up, and walked to the bathroom. Take it and leave before I regret it. I looked at the card, and my tears instantly broke free. Harry and I were college classmates. I was a student on a scholarship loan, and his family donated buildings to the school. From the beginning, we were not people from the same world. He was in the spotlight, like a star in school, attracting the attention of groups of girls wherever he went. It wasn't just because of his affluent background, but also his movie star looks. He was also very proud, never accepting the fervent pursuits of female classmates. Yet, he set his sights on me. His friends teased him, got tired of the roses, now you want to try the wildflowers? Judy is pretty, but don't you think she's too plain? This kind of girl looks stubborn, I heard many people pursued her, but she was indifferent. So rustic, maybe she's still a virgin? Might be hard to shake off in the future. Even so, Harry kept pursuing me. At that time, besides attending classes, I worked part-time outside to earn my living expenses and save money to repay my student loan. He always found the shops where I worked and often waited there for me to get off work. Once, he spent a lot at the shop where I worked, making me the sales champion of the month, surpassing even the full-time staff in sales. The shop assistant teased me, "Your boyfriend is really good to you." But I don't get it, why not just give you the money? Buying stuff from the shop only gives you a commission. Or is this some young couple's fun? Blushing, I said, I'm not familiar with him. The shop assistant didn't believe me. What's there to be afraid of? Our manager only cares about performance, not personal relationships. She turned around and reported me, saying I was engaging in unfair competition. As a result, I got scolded by the manager. Not wanting to cause trouble, I resigned. That day after work, Harry was waiting in his car by the roadside. It was the first time I got into his car. He was so happy, thinking there could be progress between us, but I told him, "Harry, I don't like this game. Please don't disrupt my life again. Don't be prejudiced against rich people, okay? I'm different from others. I'll be devoted to you. Judy, won't you consider me?" Facing such a handsome, wealthy man who was willing to stand up for me, I couldn't say I wasn't moved at all. But how much patience could a handsome rich guy have in the face of so many temptations? Maybe it wouldn't be long before he turned to someone else. His pursuit might just be for fun or to satisfy his sense of conquest. So, I said, let's see how much patience Mr. Harry has. I thought he would last at most 3 months, but to my surprise, he hadn't given up after a year. During the New Year's Eve of my sophomore year, I was working at a convenience store. When I got off work, it was already past 10 at night, and the streets were almost empty. There were sounds of celebration and joy coming from the residential buildings along the road. Various fireworks were lighting up the sky. On a day when families gathered together, I felt like a wandering ghost, drifting through the city. Suddenly, a car stopped beside me. The window rolled down, and Harry's bright smile appeared. "Judy, Happy New Year!" I looked at him and suddenly felt very wronged, extremely wronged. Unconsciously, tears streamed down my face. Harry was startled, hurriedly got out of the car, and tried to wipe my tears away, but the more he wiped, the more they flowed. "Why are you crying? What's wrong? If you don't want to see me, I'll leave right away." No. After that, I started dating him. I still often did part-time jobs. I didn't want him to think I was after his money. I wouldn't let him buy me expensive things, and I tried to reciprocate as much as I could. If he treated me to a meal, I would treat him back. If he gave me a gift, I would save up to buy him one. 6 months passed, and our intimacy only reached the stage of kissing. Harry respected me a lot, he didn't make any further moves without my consent. In our junior year, Harry celebrated his 21st birthday. He booked the top floor of a restaurant and invited many classmates and friends. Someone, emboldened by alcohol, asked him, "Harry, how far have you and your goddess gone? Can you tell us?" Harry glared at him impatiently. That person mocked him, "No way. You two haven't slept together yet? Wow. Harry, you're embarrassing the rich kids. You're in college and still playing pure love." That's hilarious. Harry punched him in the nose, making it bleed. The party ended on a sour note. After everyone left, he sat there dejectedly, and I knew he was very unhappy. I cupped his face and said, "I'm sorry." He looked up at me, then stood up, pulled me into his arms, and started kissing me. Without breaking the kiss, he mumbled, "Judy, are you willing? Do you want to?" In a moment of passion, I nodded. When we got to the hotel, I began to feel scared. It wasn't that I didn't want to give myself to him, I was afraid. Afraid he would discover my secret. The closer he got, the more scared I became. When he tried to take off my last piece of clothing, I hurriedly held on to it. "What's wrong?" Harry was puzzled. It's okay, Judy. I know it's your first time, and it's normal to be scared. Don't worry, I'll be very gentle. If it hurts, just tell me. Do you know how long I've waited for this day? I really love you. I'll be responsible for you, he coaxed me. But I only wanted to retreat. When he tried to take off my clothes, I held on desperately. He thought I was just scared because it was my first time and kept comforting me. I became more and more anxious and blurted out, "Why are you forcing me?" He froze. "I'm forcing you? Judy, have a clear conscience. Have I ever forced you? We've been together for so long, haven't I respected you? Before coming to the hotel, didn't I ask for your opinion? I got anxious too. Isn't it because that person mocked you? You rich kids feel embarrassed if you don't sleep with girls, right? You've always been patient with me because you haven't succeeded yet." There was a mist rising in his eyes. He opened his mouth but didn't say a word for a long time. He grabbed his clothes, slammed the door, and left. I sat dejectedly on the bed, hugging my scar-covered back, and cried. After that day, Harry disappeared. I heard about him again a month later. I heard that he followed his family's advice and went abroad. I felt guilty and sad, but more than that, I felt relieved. Relieved that he didn't find out about my flaws and despised me. At 20, I couldn't bear the thought of the person I loved despising me, not even a little. In front of him, my pride was like a mountain. When I was 12, my dad died in a car accident. After my mom squandered my dad's inheritance, she remarried. We started living with my stepfather. From that moment, my nightmare began. Every night, I was afraid to sleep deeply, fearing that a hand would reach into my bed in the middle of the night. I was so scared and begged my mom to take me away from there. But my mom said I was overthinking. I begged her to let me live at school, but she used the excuse of not having money for the dorm fees, yet she played mahjong every day. Later, I threatened her, saying if she didn't agree, I would jump off the building. Only then did she reluctantly ask my stepfather for money. But that night, my locked door was pried open, and my stepfather broke into my room and tried to force himself on me. I struggled desperately, and he whipped me with a belt. I understood everything. I kept the evidence, planning to report him and make him pay. But my mom destroyed the evidence I left. She even scolded me, "Who told you to dress so provocatively? Who told you to be shameless, and who told you to compete with me for a man?" I ran to the rooftop, really wanting to jump off and end it all. But just as I stepped half a foot out, my mom rushed over and held me. Crying, she said, "It's my fault, but I can't support both of us. You are good at studying, you need to go to college, right? Blame your dad for dying so early. How are we supposed to live, just the two of us? You have no right to talk about my dad. You don't even have the face to see him. Neither do I." My stepfather might have been worried that I would ruin his good reputation, so he paid for my dorm fees. Since then, I never went back home. After getting into college, I applied for a student loan. I never thought about falling in love. I felt unworthy. Harry's appearance was an accident. He was like a ray of light in my dark life, warming my cold heart, and I got lost in it. I told myself that we were from different worlds and would part ways sooner or later. Maybe, before he discovered my secret, he would fall in love with someone else. Let me enjoy this happiness a bit longer, just a little more. I would pay it back. That day, I impulsively agreed to him. But at the crucial moment, I backed out. I was afraid he would find out I wasn't a virgin, afraid he would realize that the girl he had liked for so long wasn't worth it. Afraid he would despise me, and despise himself. Afraid he would regret it, and say the harshest words to me. I was really terrified. After Harry left, I felt guilty all the time. I asked his old friends about his recent situation, hoping to hear from them that he had a new girlfriend. To find even a bit of psychological comfort. But they all avoided me like the plague. After graduation, I found a fairly decent job. Living a routine life every day. I occasionally think of Harry, and it feels like a dream I once had. A dream that should have ended long ago. Some people pursued me, but I turned them all down. I was afraid they would ask about the scars on my back. If I told the truth, would anyone not care? I never believed they would. I didn't want to live a life of lies, so I decided to live alone. My household registration was still with them, and I had thought about transferring it out. I used a public phone to call my mom and asked about it. My mom just kept scolding me, calling me an ungrateful wretch. She raised me for so many years, and after going to college, I never went back to see her. She even asked, "Have you made a lot of money and want to buy a house? Bring me to live with you, and I will transfer the household registration for you. Or have you found a wealthy man?" I always said your looks wouldn't go to waste. I hung up the phone, completely giving up the idea of transferring my household registration. But changes came quickly. In the third year of my job, one day, I suddenly received a call from the police station in my hometown. It turned out that my stepfather had borrowed money and couldn't repay it, so he ran away. My mom also disappeared. The creditor sued, and they could only find me through the household registration. My stepfather's house was mortgaged, and there was still over $2 million left. It all fell on me. Once the creditors contacted me, they started harassing me one after another. I had no choice but to quit my job and find a high-paying job as a hostess. A friend at the club, Linda, asked me, "Judy, you're a college graduate, unlike me, who didn't even finish middle school. Why are you doing this?" That was the first time I told someone about my experiences. She didn't laugh at me, just hugged me. Feeling sorry for me. If I were you, I would have taken a knife and cut off that bastard's thing. At worst, we'd both die together. I smiled bitterly. You're right. If I see him again, I'll cut him. It's okay, Judy. I'll help you cut him. In the club, I've seen all kinds of people. Getting groped was common, and the scars on my back were no secret. When customers saw them and asked, I would say, "I got them from a fight." The other guy was worse off, he's disabled now. They would look surprised and instinctively move their hands away from my back. But I felt so tired. Drinking until I vomited every day, constantly avoiding the dirty hands of customers. I thought I had long forgotten what dignity was. After experiencing another stomach hemorrhage, I suddenly wanted to give up. So when that rich young man offered me $1 million, I was really tempted. What was I holding on to? Hadn't my life already been ruined? I just never expected to meet Harry there. The sound of water came from the bathroom. I walked towards it. I took a few deep breaths, calmed myself down, and knocked on the bathroom door. "Mr. Harry? If I just take your money and leave, won't you feel like it's a loss?" The bathroom door opened, and Harry stood there with only a towel wrapped around him, leaning against the door frame, looking at me. I lifted my eyes to look at him as well. Since our reunion, I hadn't had a proper look at him. He was really handsome, the most handsome man I had ever seen. Especially those eyes, with slightly upturned corners. When we were dating, those eyes always smiled at me, and I was completely captivated by them. 6 years had passed, and now I couldn't understand them anymore. He could have had a smooth life, so why did he always seem gloomy? While I was lost in thought, he suddenly pulled me inside and pressed his lips against mine. I gave you a chance, but you didn't leave. I didn't resist at all, letting him take what he wanted from me. When his rough fingers touched my back, he suddenly stopped. What is this? Who hurt you? He asked, his voice tense as if he was holding his breath. He carefully explored the scar. I stuck to my usual story, got into a fight with someone. The other person had it worse. Is it because of this? My lie was caught in my throat, and I couldn't continue. Why doesn't Mr. Harry believe me? I'm really good at fighting. Was it because of these things that you didn't want to be with me back then? We were still in an intimate position. Mentioning the past made his voice tremble a little. I forced myself to stay calm. Heh, it's been so long, and you still remember? I've already forgotten. Mr. Harry, turns out you're quite a sentimental person. I forcibly pulled his hand off my back, trying to change the subject. He suddenly grabbed my arm, his eyes red. I've reflected on it countless times, wondering what I did wrong. But no matter how much I think about it, I can't figure it out. He placed his hand back on my scar, feeling it. If it's just because of these scars, then you're really underestimating me. Judy, do you really not trust me at all? What exactly happened? Why won't you tell me? I looked into his eyes, where emotions surged like waves. I always knew he was a good person, really good. He grew up in a life I couldn't even dream of. He was a prince among men, without the arrogance and indulgence often seen in the wealthy. He could never imagine that in this world, there were people like me living in the abyss. We were never from the same world. So let him see what kind of world I live in. My stepfather beat me. His eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't just beat me, he raped me. I wanted to report him. But my mom, my birth mother, destroyed the evidence I had. His eyes suddenly widened, and I knew he was shocked. Then you. Yes. When I was dating you, I wasn't a virgin anymore. I suddenly laughed. You asked why I suddenly backed out? I'm telling you now. I was afraid of being found out. His mouth opened slightly, and he gradually let go of my hand. Now I only care about money. If you don't mind, we can continue. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, pushed me away, and walked out of the bathroom. After a while, I heard the sound of the door opening and closing. I leaned against the glass door of the bathroom and slowly sat down. Hugging my arms, I buried my head in them. The shower was still running, and I didn't know if the water on my face was tears or water. I think I've finally buried my love with my own hands. Harry left $5 million in that card. I took out over $1 million to repay the debt. I retrieved the household registration book that was mortgaged to the creditor. I was finally no longer a defaulter. I could buy high-speed train tickets and find a decent job. When I went to the club to resign, Linda hugged me and cried. The manager said to me, "Judy, you're making an honest living selling drinks here, you haven't done anything out of line. You're earning clean money, don't look down on yourself because of this." I nodded, I understand. If Mr. Harry gets tired of you. Don't worry, manager. I know what I'm doing. After handling all these things, I thought I would feel relieved. But in fact, there was always a heavy stone pressing on my chest. Before seeing Harry again, I was living in a daze. Forced to flee my family by life's pressures, making money to pay off debts. But after seeing him again, I hated my stepfather and my mother even more. If I hadn't suffered those humiliations, if I had been innocent and clean, even if it wasn't Harry, I could have loved bravely like other girls and lived a simple and happy life. They ruined my life. I decided to take revenge on them. I didn't know where they were hiding. But I knew the news of the debt being repaid would reach their ears sooner or later. Where could they go? They would definitely return to familiar places. I bought a train ticket back to my hometown. This was my first time returning since I left for college. It's been over 8 years, and many places have changed. But the old town remained the same. I stood downstairs, looking at the rooftop. I wondered, if I had jumped from there back then, would I have been reborn into a good family by now? I remembered what Linda said to me. Judy, if it were me, I would definitely drag those two scumbags with me before I die. If I can't live well, they shouldn't either. She was right. I should have fought them to the death back then. My stepfather's house was mortgaged to the bank and later auctioned off. I rented a place nearby, found a temporary job, and sharpened knives at home every day, planning to wait for them. I had no hope for life, my only thought now was to get revenge. But I never expected to receive a call from Harry. I reported them missing at the police station. That night, I received a call from an unknown number, thinking there was news. When I answered, it was my mother's voice, crying and begging me. Judy, I know I was wrong, I'm sorry. I'll testify for you, let them release me. I'm old, I can't take the fright, Judy, please. The call was so inexplicable that I didn't react immediately. Then Harry's voice came through the phone. Judy, go report your stepfather to the police. Harry? I'm sorry, I was too emotional that day. I was afraid if I stayed, I couldn't control myself. I wanted to kill them to avenge you. Judy, don't be afraid, I'm here, I'll get justice for you. I'll always be with you. My hand holding the phone was trembling. But, there's no physical evidence, will he be convicted? You ask her yourself. Harry handed the phone back to my mother. Judy, I didn't tell you, but I secretly kept the evidence. I originally wanted to use it to control him, You have evidence? I couldn't hold back anymore, clutching my chest, and started crying loudly. You actually hid it. What a joke! You actually hid it. Crying and laughing, like I was going mad. Do you know how I've lived all these years? You're my mother, do you deserve that title? Harry comforted me on the other end. Judy, now is not the time to talk about this. There's something more urgent. I've arranged for people to find your stepfather, he's at the border, trying to escape. Go report it quickly, only with a case against him can he be detained. After hanging up, I quickly dialed the police. Officer, I want to report a rape. These words, 10 years late, I finally said them. My stepfather was brought back. At the court hearing, I saw him and my mom. 3 of his fingers were broken. According to my lawyer, he claimed it happened while he was working and got caught in a machine by accident. I faced him and said, "Why didn't it crush you to death?" He looked at me and showed his yellow teeth. Humph. The little girl is growing up nicely. You're much prettier than your mom. I regret not having more of you back then. The judge sternly stopped him. He was given an additional charge in court for severely insulting the plaintiff. He was not convinced and shouted, "She cursed me to die, why aren't you punishing her?" The judge rolled his eyes at him. He then pointed at my mom and cursed her. You witch, hiding evidence behind my back. I tell you, even if I die, I won't let you off. My mom cursed back at him, and the 2 of them fought from a few meters apart. As a result, both were heavily sentenced. After that, I fell seriously ill and was unconscious for a while. I was hospitalized for a month before gradually getting better. When Harry wasn't busy with work, he would come to the hospital to see me, holding my hand and talking. He traveled back and forth between 2 places, which was very tiring. I told him not to come. He refused to listen. Don't even think about leaving me again. He took out a diamond ring from his pocket and put it on the ring finger of my left hand. I looked at him in surprise. Don't say anything yet, just listen to me first. He took my hand and kissed it. When I was little, my parents were busy with their business, and they left me at my grandparents' house. They were also quite busy, so I was mostly alone at home. When I was about 8 or 9, a woman tricked me into saying she would take me to buy something tasty. It wasn't until she got me into a car that I realized I was in trouble. I struggled desperately, and the bad guys used nails to stab me. I have scars on my back too. As he spoke, he opened his collar and lowered his head for me to see. Sure enough, there were 2 small scars. Later, they took me on a train, and it was a man who noticed something was wrong and saved me. He took me to the police station and waited until my parents came to pick me up. They wanted to give him a lot of money, but he refused. I remember he said he had a daughter about my age, and if she were in trouble, he would be very sad. No matter what, he had to save her. He also said he hoped his good deed that day would bring good fortune to his daughter. Suddenly, I remembered when my dad went on a business trip. He returned 2 days later than promised. At that time, my mom even suspected he had an affair. She scolded him for a long time, insisting he admit it. He just patted my head and told me, "Daddy went to be a hero and helped another child get home." Could it be that he was the child my dad brought back home? I looked at him, and tears started streaming down my face. He took out a 1-inch photo from his pocket and handed it to me. It was my dad's work photo. When I had someone investigate your mom, I found some information. I found an old photo among it. Though many years have passed and the memory is blurry, I will never forget those eyes, with a mole at the corner and smiling with dimples. On that train, he sat opposite us. It was those eyes that saw I was calling for help. You look a lot like him. In fact, when we were in college, my friends never understood why I was attracted to you. It wasn't until now that I realized it was your eyes. They gave me a great sense of security, and I couldn't help but want to get closer. As I looked at my dad's photo, my tears flowed again. The emotions I had been suppressing for so long burst out completely at this moment. Harry held me tightly until I calmed down. Then he said, "So, stop saying those silly things. We're destined to be together. Your dad is my benefactor, and I have no way to repay him other than marrying his daughter. And I believe he would also want you to be happy." I agreed to his proposal. I took him back to my hometown to visit my father's grave. I haven't been here for many years. Before, I didn't know how to face him. I didn't know how to tell him how I've been living all these years. His beloved daughter ended up like this. I was afraid he would be disappointed in me. Even more, I was afraid he wouldn't rest in peace. All these years, I never dreamed of him. But the night I agreed to Harry's proposal, I dreamed of my dad. He called me like he did when I was a child, "Sweetie, don't be afraid. Daddy will always protect you." I think maybe Harry was sent by him to save me. Harry and I knelt in front of my dad's grave together. "Uncle, we meet again. Do you remember me? I'm sorry I didn't recognize your daughter right away. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone abroad out of anger, leaving her to suffer alone for so many years." I looked at him, and he squeezed my hand. "Can I call you Dad? If you don't answer, I'll take it as a yes. Dad, I will love Judy for the rest of my life. Please rest assured." A butterfly flew to the grave, circling for a long time before landing on my shoulder. I think my dad heard us. We had a romantic wedding by the sea. Harry's parents felt very guilty because they couldn't repay my dad back then. They poured all their gratitude towards my dad onto me. They treated me very well. They took care of me like a big baby. Harry's college roommates also came. When they saw me, they finally were willing to talk to me. One of them said, "Judy, you don't know how much we hated you back then." Harry nudged him, "What are you talking about?" Others chimed in. Back then, when we played games, it was always Harry who paid for us. Just so we could help him find out where you were working and when you got off work. During the 6 months you two were dating, our dorm's meal cards were all topped up by him. Goodness, after you two broke up, he went abroad and completely left us behind. We didn't even have money to play games. Harry knocked on his head. "What nonsense are you talking about? We were just standing up for you. It's your fault too, you left and didn't keep in touch with us. Otherwise, you would know that Judy was always asking about you." Harry looked at me. Blushing, I said, I was actually hoping to hear that he had found a new girlfriend. "What?" They were stunned. "Really?" Harry pulled me to his side. That night, he tormented me quite a bit. He said it was my punishment. Let's just keep being this happy. Extra story, Harry's perspective. I never believed in love at first sight before. But ever since I saw Judy for the first time, I fell hopelessly in love with her. I can't explain why, but I always felt she was very familiar and wanted to see her every day. My roommates would laugh at me, saying that a pure-hearted guy like me was a rare breed. I didn't care about them. I just wanted to chase after Judy. Wherever she went, I'd follow. But I had limited energy, so I had to bribe a few of my roommates with money, asking them to find out what Judy was busy with all day. Why I never saw her around school. Later, I found out she was busy working part-time jobs. To be honest, when I learned this, I was even a bit pleased. Because she wasn't running off with another man. Otherwise, I might have had to become a villain. So, I often went to the places where she worked part-time to spend money, like coffee shops, fast food joints, clothing stores. I shared the things I bought with my roommates, and they used those things to win over the girls they liked. But Judy still wouldn't pay attention to me and always avoided me. I thought, maybe I hadn't done enough. So, I spent a lot of money at the jewelry store where she worked part-time. That day, she finally opened my car door, which thrilled me so much that I couldn't even speak properly. I even took her rejection as sweet talk. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. I thought, I must be crazy. On New Year's Eve, my parents were busy abroad and couldn't come back, and I didn't want to go abroad, so I was alone at home. My friends all went home to have New Year's Eve dinner. I was bored, driving around the streets, when I suddenly saw a familiar figure. It was Judy. She didn't go back to her hometown. My heart was pounding so fast, it felt like it was going to jump out of my throat. But I still maintained my gentlemanly demeanor, thinking I looked cool as I parked my car next to her and smiled, saying, "Judy, Happy New Year." To my surprise, she started crying. At that moment, my heart ached so much. I wished I could give her my life. I know Judy has a lot of pride. She doesn't want to accept my kindness for nothing. So, I could only say that the gifts I gave her were bought from street vendors, and I lowered the price as much as possible. Seeing her busy with part-time jobs every day, I felt really sorry for her. But I knew that even if I gave her money, she wouldn't accept it. That birthday party in our junior year was the first birthday I celebrated after getting together with Judy. I took it very seriously. I secretly had my mom order a custom ring from abroad, planning to propose to her. I was nervous for a long time, afraid of scaring her. But damn it, someone ruined my birthday party. Judy and I hadn't crossed the final line yet, but why did they laugh at me, laugh at Judy? Someone said that Judy didn't like me at all, that she was just playing with this fool. They said I was a disgrace to the wealthy young master image. I couldn't take it and hit him. After everyone left, I asked Judy, "Will you?" She clearly agreed. But after entering the hotel, she changed her mind. Said I was forcing her. Perhaps at that moment, I finally saw clearly. Judy really didn't like me, did she? After going abroad, I was depressed for a long time. I often went an entire day without saying a word. My mom was worried something might happen to me, so she even quit her job. She didn't let me live on campus and bought an apartment near my school, making sure I came home for dinner every day. My dad started letting me take over the family business. Maybe because I was busy, I gradually came out of my shell. My personality changed a lot too. Some people said I became more mature and reserved. Only I knew it was because I had lost something. Half a year ago, I officially took full control of the family business in the country. I started interacting with the heirs and heiresses of various domestic conglomerates. That day, I was sitting alone in the corner, drinking, when suddenly I heard a familiar voice. "Sir, I only accompany you for drinks, nothing else." I was stunned. 1 million. She seemed to hesitate. So she cared about money. Well, I had more money. I admit, I was very angry at that moment. If money could buy her, then what was she holding on to before? But when she was really willing to give herself to me, I backed off. I was afraid she would regret it. Although I didn't know why she was doing this job, she must have needed money badly. I decided to give it to her. I never thought that the girl I had carefully protected would have those scars on her body. When she recounted her childhood experiences as if she were telling someone else's story, I was shocked. I couldn't describe my feelings at that moment. I just felt all the blood in my body rushing to my head. I wanted to kill someone. I really wanted to kill someone. To kill her stepfather and her mother. My fists clenched and then relaxed. I thought about holding her, but I found I didn't dare to touch her. I felt very guilty. I hated myself. I had never truly understood her, yet I still resented her. I couldn't face myself, couldn't express myself, so I left. I stood in the rain all night, thinking a lot. I only knew I had to do one thing. Help her find her stepfather and her birth mother. Let her seek justice for herself. I truly have Judy. Her father once saved my life. I finally understood why I fell in love with her at first sight. Maybe it was fate. May we be happy. We will definitely be happy forever.